Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. We are back from London, probably still really tired. We had basically 2 days worth of hours on our flights back yesterday, but ultimately had a very fun weekend. Maybe not the best weekend for results for the Runaways for like the first time in a very long time. So a little sad about that, but uh, we will dive into that. We have a bunch of questions. I actually think we have a pretty cool topic to talk about today. Really digging into some of the runs from this Pro Tour Top 8 and what it actually takes to top 8 one of these events. Something that we could never have done before stats wise that we can actually do now because of some of the changes with gems. So pretty excited to get to that. But first of all, Lucas, we just spent a bunch of days together
Mhm,
because we're sharing a hotel room.
mhm.
Uh, how was your? I know all about your trip, but for the people out there, how was your trip to London? How was your event?
My trip to London was actually awesome. Last time I went to London was the worst day of my life, travel wise. It was just miserable. I was sick and everything got delayed. I missed a couple of days worth of experience because of that. But this time I got a front row parking seat at my local airport parking lot. I got no people in security on the way there. Of my four flights, I had two hour long flights from St. Louis to Chicago, and then two Chicago to London and back. Of those flights, the only time anyone sat next to me was my return flight from Chicago to St. Louis. I had one guy on my right, and of the rest of the four flights, I had nobody next to me. So my actual travel experience was awesome. It was very smooth, very easy, no confusion. Jet lag maybe got me a little bit. My sleep schedule throughout the weekend was not the best. Staying up on Saturday night to watch UFC till 6 a.m. was maybe not the best idea for my sleep, but I had a good time. And yeah, the city itself was fun. We didn't get to do too much, at least I didn't, but it was reasonable. The area we were in was really nice, and yeah, the culture of the area that we were in and the restaurants were reasonable enough. So
Yeah, all this complaint about British food was overblown. I thought
yeah, it was just
that
kind
was
of
fine.
whatever. It was fine.
No complaints there. What about your tournament? Yeah,
Yeah,
any short things you want to talk about?
Yeah, short. I don't know about that, but I do have some things I want to talk about. So the real quick record, I ended up going 9-5. I went 8-1 in CC, or 10-5. Sorry, I went 8-1 in CC with Aurora, the same record as Charles. We had a really good Aurora deck. I thought it performed super well over the whole tournament. And then in draft, I went 2-4. I went 1-2 both times in draft. But I ended up getting 64th. Lucky, got that easy 900 US. So I ended up, getting something out of the weekend. So I was happy with that. But the biggest story from the weekend that I have was my first round draft pod on day one. So I 4-1 CC. I'm going into draft. I'm feeling good. My hunted win percentage in draft is pretty good. I've been doing well in a lot of my practice drafts, but I sit down, I start drafting pretty open. Out of my first 4 or 5 picks, I have two really strong Arachne cards and some good Fang cards as well. And then by the time that the wheel hits, I have 4 Arachne cards and 4 Fang cards. And so I'm feeling all right. My deck's pretty open. My cards that I actually have are very strong. And then I wheel pretty good Fang cards. I ended up pick 5 or 6, some good reacts, some good front pumps, and some blues for Fang. It had seemed more open than Arachne. Initially, I was getting more Fang cards than Arachne cards. And then once I hit the wheel, I wheel Red Hunter-Killer out of a pack with only one other warrior card. Then I wheel a Red Cut Deep out of a pack with only one other warrior card. And then finally, with 2 cards left in the pack, I send a pack with Stabbing Pain, Dynastic Dedication, and a blue 3 block as the only playable warrior cards. And I get back one of the warrior cards and the Dynastic Dedication with 2 cards left. So if you understand what any of that means, warrior is clearly open. Um, I'm hitting good wheels. I'm getting good signals. I started off with pretty good warrior cards. So I go into warrior. I think I have a pretty good Fang start going into pack 2. In pack 2, I get a bunch of armor. And then the result of the draft is that there are 4 Fangs in the pod somehow. And although none of the other fangs in the pod, at least to my knowledge, ended with any of these, I have 5 crack baubles in my deck. So this was an interesting situation for me where I drafted my seat and I stayed pretty open, and I thought I got rewarded, and then I got basically as hard punished as one possibly can in this situation. And I felt a little bit frustrated at the time. I ended up 1-2ing with the deck still. I almost got my first couple games, losing to a exactly Tarantula Toxin on Graphene Chelicera, stuff like that, where it just kind of happens. But I ended up beating Yuanji, of course, with the 5 bauble deck. But yeah, it was interesting. I really was kind of frustrated with the format and with Fab Draft in general at the time. I talked to a lot of pros and a lot of players and went over the drafts like very in detail, going over what I sent, what I wheeled, things like that. And most people agreed that I ultimately probably was in the right seat and drafted properly, but sometimes you just get unlucky. So I'm hoping that moving forward, this kind of thing can be prevented more in future draft sets. Things like more generics, like we had in Part the Misfail, or something like Rosetta, I think can help solve this a little bit. But the normal format where we have, 6 to 7 cards that only one hero can play, and then a few hybrid cards that some of the heroes can't play, I think can lead to these kinds of awkward situations where basically because a couple people around me moved into my seat, and because the hybrid cards were primarily Assassin Ninja or got snatched away from me, then I ended up in a bad situation.
I have one question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
You think when you said you were talking with all these pros and players,
Mhm.
do you think they just agreed with you so you would stop talking?
I actually thought I thought it was very possible, but basically everyone, I was just like, "Do you want to hear about this?" And they were like, "Sure." And then I was like,
Well, no one's going to say no to your face because like we're
"No,
humans,
no,
you
no.
know.
There's a
You're not
difference."
going to be like no and walk away,
No,
shun
no,
the
no.
little kid.
I think it's possible,
It's
but
your birthday too. Come on, no one's going to diss you.
I don't know, man. People are definitely willing to diss me.
Oh, that's
There were
unfortunate,
some
man.
people who were just like, I don't want to hear about it. And I was like, okay, that's fair. Like, I get it.
That's crazy. I would never have the audacity to say something like that.
But
I'm always
no,
going to lend an ear to a bad beat story.
it was interesting though. I think it was maybe not the best learning moment for me, but I think that it's something that should be looked at in the future more. And I think that people are kind of waking up to this as well and starting to realize that if they didn't already, that Fab Draft itself is a little bit flawed with how most of the sets and the pack breakdowns are. I think the fact that you can be in that sort of situation, honestly, just getting 5 crack baubles in general feels like something that should be almost impossible at a even like at a casual level. Like you shouldn't be something that happens, I think. Um, and so hopefully future sets, like I mean, High Seas is promising with how many generics are in the set with the pirate cards, right? But we'll see how it actually works out. But my hope is that moving forward, this kind of experience can't happen, because it did kind of feel like I did what I was supposed to. I stayed open. I didn't stay open super long, right? I mean, it was only a few picks. I had 4 assassin cards. That's not a whole lot. Um, and kind of did everything right and still got punished. So kind of watching my pro tour go down in flames from something like that was pretty frustrating. But other than that, my tournament was pretty reasonable. I had a good CC deck. The other draft was just kind of, I drafted a medium deck and lost 3 die rolls and whatever. So I was pretty happy with the weekend. I felt like my prep was good and I did mostly what I could have done. Yeah, just some events don't go your way. That's all right.
Or go your way for anyone on the team is also a possibility
Indeed.
at this event.
Indeed.
Noah, how was your weekend? How was London, and how was your games so overall?
I feel like it just flew by. I don't know. This experience was kind of strange because it was way too chill. I feel like when I go to a tournament and like everything just goes super smooth, there's not really any bumps in the road or hiccups, then that just pushes all the bad luck onto the actual tournament itself. So I'm not necessarily wishing for flight delays and hotel check-in problems, but like I feel like there's got to be something going wrong. Someone's got to like spit in my food. I got to have some kind of like negative experience, so that way I get more positivity in the actual event.
Adversity is a good thing, right? Adversity is a blessing.
Yeah. But you can't like wish the adversity on you. It's just got to genuinely happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We can
but yeah,
make
so
that
anyway,
happen. We can give you adversity for the next event if that's what you need.
okay. Yeah, I mean, if we see history repeat itself and I have smooth sailing, pun intended, into a poor experience, then then maybe we'll have to change it up for the next event. But anyways, yeah. So like playing Enigma was kind of cool. I haven't played an illusionist at any like real event. I mean, I played it at the team Battle Hardened PTI thing, but yeah, playing illusionist for like the past couple months, kind of like prepping for this tournament, was a little bit strange since we played the refractor switchboard and we hadn't been doing that in like public tournaments. We just been doing it at armories and some like internal games and stuff. So I think it was like pretty well known, but it was definitely nice to see the look of surprise in some of my opponents' faces when I played Specman and then swung, and every time I would say 8, and I think it just like didn't register in their head. They would just be like thinking and then like go, no blocks, write down like say that they're losing 4. I'm like, no, 8. And they're like, oh yeah, you said that, huh? It's pretty big. So yeah, the calling went much better for me because a lot of times my Spectral Shield was swinging for 8 because I was actually drawing and casting Red Spec-Man compared to in the Pro Tour, I was casting the blue one and it was only swinging for 6. And so my opponents are alive at like, between 1 to 4 HP when they shouldn't be. So I was a little bit sad. But yeah, I just had like I would say Saturday was probably the most fun day of games I had. I dropped day 1 of the Pro Tour, just went 4-4, and then went 7-2 day 1 of the calling when like probably a couple coin flip-ish kind of things don't go my way, and I also just go like 50% win rate in that tournament, but some of them did flip my way, and that was pretty fun. And then I just got my hopes and dreams shattered by these stupid Fable cards in the Prism deck, which is like, yeah, we'll probably have a topic at some point where I just like dismantle why every single Fable is like the stupidest thing ever. It's like similar to like Legendary Dragons and Dromai, just like I don't know.
Did
like
you hear
the
James
game
White?
system isn't designed for these kind of things. But
Did you hear James White say that the High Seas Fable was
I know.
internally contentious? Are you excited for the Fable to just like be broken? And James White,
it just
yeah, we want these broken 1-ofs that make the game experience.
We want because FAB is such an affordable game. We want to make sure that we add another $200 card that you have to buy, and when you draw it, it's worth like 3 cards of value.
Well, you also know how like in Flesh and Blood all your cards are like pretty close, and how draw variance isn't that big of a deal. What if we just like gave you a card that when you draw it in the first 2 turns, you draw like 7 extra cards during the game in your deck where your cards are better than everyone else's cards?
Yeah, or like Kano, it's like, oh, I just have like a depot and then I pitch this will. So it's like I just drew 2 cards off of pitching a blue, basically.
Yeah, I just did like 12 extra damage.
Like, how is that a mechanic that is in the game? I think there was maybe a time historically where no blocks were actually like a real downside, but we've kind of evolved to where you just like play. There's like certain cards in your deck you just like don't really block with. They have 3 block in the corner, but that's more of like I'm about to lose this game. Okay, at least I'll block with this. Maybe I won't lose. It's less about like how you actually play the card. So yeah, I think like the whole no block thing is a downside is kind of a meme.
I think specifically in your resources is where I think the no blocks on cards that you play is a big deal because you don't have the flexibility. But with your resource cards, it's just like most decks that play these no blocks are always pitching at least 1 card, if not 2 to 3. So it just ends up being kind of suspicious.
Agreed. I also lost to a library. And that's after I Phantasmaclasmed to the bottom of the deck because I was like, no library, please. And then it was like a couple turns later, library.
Well, the top 4 game is like the dude's down like 27 life, and then he puts library out, and then he just like completely comes back, and then as soon as he starts drawing off library, the game just like ends. Like, he just can't possibly win once his Fable's gone. It's crazy.
Yeah. Dan, how was your weekend? You went on a little extended trip, I think.
Yeah, I did. Wife and I flew out a week early to London. Amazing trip. Such a great time. Really good, like, mental reset. We watched Liverpool Football Club play in London. It's like a lifelong dream of mine to see Liverpool. Wasn't quite the same because it wasn't a home game. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but I sat in the Fulham section, so I wasn't allowed to cheer for Liverpool. So I had to be like an incognito Liverpool fan. So I definitely want to go back and see them in the home stadium so I can actually cheer for the right team. But that was super cool. Then we went to Scotland, to Edinburgh. Had a great time there. really sick city. It's very like touristy, but not in like a detrimental way. Just the city's so cool that just kind of got overtaken by tourists, I guess. But like the food's real good, amazing sights everywhere. Um, yeah, did all like the typical stuff you do there. Went to see the castle, ran into a Tommy Fresh randomly at the castle. He was there on his honeymoon. He didn't actually make it to London, but that was pretty cool. See a
That's
flesh and
actually
blood friend.
crazy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They were like exiting the castle as we were entering. But yeah, no, sick trip. Then we made it to London on Thursday. So I didn't really have much time to do last minute prep. Didn't really have much time to do early minute prep, however you want to say that, either. But that's okay. So yeah, travels were amazing. Like incredible time. Even like the tournament experience was very enjoyable. My actual tournament run was pretty tragic. It's kind of just a sad day, to be honest. Like my pro tour run, I was kind of like, no, my Saturday, my calling day one was like incredibly enjoyable. Like a lot of really good games. I had a pretty good run. I lost the last round of the calling, but that's whatever. But my pro tour one was just like my 2 CC losses were games that I don't think anyone could win ever in my position. Like it wasn't just like, oh, my opponent drew the good card, so I lost, or I didn't draw my mirror guy or something. It was just my opponents drew like extremely well, and I drew like the most unplayable hands you could have. So they were like aggro matchups I lost, and my opponents just had like way above rate turns every turn, and I didn't draw any D reacts, which meant I was getting like 3 value per card, and they were getting like 4.5. So that was tough. But I went 3-2, so I like survived CC. And then draft, I like took a gamble early in the draft to try and create like a Arachne seat for myself, sending like a strong signal. I immediately found out there were 3 more Arachnes to my right, so I quickly exited into Syndra, which I think was pretty correct. I was actually really pleased with how I navigated the draft once I moved into Syndra. I think I was like nearly perfect on my wheel predictions. So I like just scrapped together a playable deck where it's like, okay, like this deck's, it functions, like it's fine. There's like a little bit of power, a couple 0-for-4s, not much. Basically my thought was if I just win a couple die rolls, or I don't know, just draw like the good cards, right? Like draw 1 blue per turn and 2 1-costers. But then I proceeded to not win any die rolls. I went 0-for-3 on those. 2 of those games against Syndra, where it matters by far the most. And then I also proceeded to not a single time resolve 2 1-costs in the same turn. So I was just a little short on those. I went 1-2, and that was the end for me. I can stop there. I don't know. That's more or less how it went. The calling was fun. I had a lot of good games. I got lazy the last round. I had a really fun intellectual game in the mirror, and I kind of threw it. So I finished that one 5-3 or whatever. 6-3. I don't know how many rounds I played. I think it was 9. So I was 6-3, and apparently that's not good enough to day 2 in the calling. I was like 100th place or something.
Yeah, it was a very big calling. My London trip was pretty good. I think if you spent any time around me, though, I was like a salty little bitch.
A little bit.
Probably like the
But
best way to explain it.
it wasn't like a not entertaining. Like it was a very entertaining salty bitch. Because the other thing is, your bad beat stories are actually like really funny to listen to. Like,
Yeah, and most of my bad beat stories have audiences, which is
yeah.
ridiculous. Like I would go to tell someone a bad beat story, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I already heard it from Raj, or I already heard it from so and so." But no, before the tournament, we went to the Harry Potter studio, which I thought was amazing. I had a great time. I'd go again. That was like some of the coolest stuff. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan, so being able to walk onto like essentially live sets where you just walk into a room and the whole room is just like Gringotts or whatever. The Great Hall is just like the coolest thing. So that was a great start to the weekend. I would go do that again in a heartbeat. Actual tournament was just the worst variance I have ever experienced in my entire life, like to the point where I didn't even know it was possible. I'm not gonna like bore people with like terribly like long stories, but like the cliff notes are like cliff notes are essentially Phantasmaclasm drew my opponent a press, the last press in their deck. I got ripple away twice by a Zen in the same game when the Zen was at 5. I got rippled away 5 times in one day.
And to clarify, this is
it should have
when this is ripple away in the refractor version of the deck, where it's
correct.
like 9 value to ripple away.
Yeah,
it's not like ripple away eating 1 spectral shield or whatever.
I should have been rippled away 7 times, but 2 of my opponents forgot, and I was still rippled away 5 times in one day. I lost to an Aurora who went +3, exude, press, because the hand I drew had no blocks in it, and the game was over on board. I lost to Warmongers on turn 0 in LL, into Awakening on turn 1, into my attack, into Fuse for 4 turns in a row. It was just, it didn't matter what format I played. It was just like the most horrendous losses I've ever had. And that's just like the short version. I mean, I got natty comboed off of no Arsenal to lose an Aurora game when they had, it was just ridiculous. So I would like to never have a weekend like that again. If you played against me that weekend and I was a salty little bitch, I apologize, because I've never been so tilted in my life. Hopefully I didn't take it out on my opponents too hard. I don't think I did. I think I was just like grumble, angry at the world. But if you felt any sort of way about it, I do apologize.
Yeah, I wanted to. Just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Shout out to everyone who did come up to us. That's just something we don't always thank people for that, but like it is pretty sweet if people come up and they just say like, "Hey, I'm a fan of the pod. Like, this is something that we put a lot of work into, and that we try to make it for you guys." So all that feedback is amazing. Thanks for everybody who was, whether it's a fan or just said hi or just had a good experience or gave us something or wanted to sign something or take a picture or anything. Just thank you guys for all coming out to see you, because like we don't get to see or talk to everybody like that all the time. So it's a really sweet experience. So if you do see us at any future events, especially me, feel free to come up and talk to me. I know some people are kind of like a little bit grumble sometimes about that stuff, but I'm always happy to chat. You can tell me your bad beats or whatever. I'll sit there and listen to you. So
yeah, I mean, I do appreciate everyone who came up. It was a lot of fun, especially when we go overseas, and then it's people from that will, we never would have an opportunity to interact with ever, that come up like, hey, when I'm riding home on the train, I listen to you guys, or when I'm on my way to work or whatever, and it's just kind of cool to have some impact on people around the world that we would never in any other circumstance get a chance to meet. So stuff like that's really cool. Definitely appreciate it. Now, I do want to jump into the topic. 20 minutes of our sad weekend when none of us even topped or won anything. It's probably enough.
I cashed. That's something.
You cashed
I
at 64th.
Yes,
Congrats. But because of the way Gem works, we're actually able to look at, for the first time, we can look at people's top 8 runs, not only see like what rounds they lost in, but what they played against the entire time. And this is something I've been asking for forever. And I think this is going to pay off in dividends moving forward in the rest of the game period. Because I think there's been plenty of times where it's like some deck tops, or you see a deck with like a weird build that like does well. And you're like, how did this win? Like, how did this get there? And the question is always like half the time is like, what was the run? And you never get those details. But now you can't hide your run from people. When you go and you top an event, you gotta, like, people can just look and see what happened. So I compiled a bunch of data. I shared this before the call. It's not something I'm not going to like read through everything individually, but I think there's some really interesting things that we can take away from what does it actually take to top one of these events. And if you're listening at home, how I would interpret some of this data or take it as effectiveness is, one, I would judge, if you are playing at the Pro Tour level, I would judge some of your runs based on kind of what it takes and what it happened for these players to actually top 8. And I would compare that to some runs you've had or the run that you had. And then it's also something moving forward that you should probably think about in like your prep, your deck construction, like when you're actually going to the tournament, of like, what do you actually need to do or needs to go well for you in these different spots in order for you to actually top one of these events. And maybe it might even make you feel a little better about some of your runs that you've had when you actually see some of the stats. But I want to kick off by just saying that we had 2 players who topped the event that in the Swiss rounds played no Auroras.
Yeah, and half of the top 8 played 1 or fewer Auroras in Swiss.
I did the math on the ones that played 0. It's like a 4%er.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look over at the expected amount of Auroras, the average amount of Auroras per person in the top 8 played is 1.75, and the expected amount of Auroras you would play is 2.7. So the top 8 on average played 1 fewer Aurora than you would have to, and also Aurora converted pretty well to day 2. So my math is literally just 30% of your rounds, where in reality it's actually higher than that.
Yeah, I think it's more interesting because this is the first tournament where we've ever had the top deck be 30%.
Yeah,
almost ever.
And it did not seem like the top 8 reflects that at all. If you just guess that based on the amount of Auroras that they played against.
Yeah. So to dig in a little bit, Pablo played 0 Auroras in Swiss, and then Sean also played 0 Auroras in Swiss.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty interesting. We saw that Kevin Murphy played 1 Aurora. He was on Prism,
yeah,
so he might have actually.
2 of our Prisms played 1 Aurora.
Yep, and then Andrew Cook also only played 1 Aurora going in. Yeah. So to contrast that, Leo, who also played Prism, played the most Auroras. Mm-hmm. That is 4. Mm-hmm. So if you played more than 4 Auroras, apparently it was impossible to top this event. Even though I know people who played a lot of Auroras who won most of those rounds. I just think that's funny. And then Paul played Aurora. He played 3 Aurora mirrors and won all of them, which is pretty neat.
It is interesting to note as well that the record of the players into Aurora, interestingly, was 12-2 across the the top 8. So it's actually really interesting data, I think, to look at. I'd be curious to see exactly what it all means, but
yeah, it's hard to verify. It's hard for those numbers to matter if you've only played 1. Yeah, because like it's pretty easy to like spike 1 in your Swiss. I do think the like 3-1 from the Prism and then like the 3-0 from the Aurora are like pretty valid results there. Anyone want to mention the draft or talk about the draft portion before we move into some other stats?
Yeah, I mean, of our top 8, we have 1 player who went 4-2 in draft, and then we have 2 players who went 6-0, and then 5 players who went 5-1. So this data seems to indicate that, especially combined with one of the things that we're going to talk about as well, being that of our top 8, everybody had a loss to give going into the final 4 rounds. Nobody was X3 going into those 4 rounds, and the players who were X3 going into day 2 and went undefeated were our 9th and 10th place finishers. And the easiest thing to extrapolate from all of this is that in order to top 8 the Pro Tour, you have to do well in draft. And specifically, you have to do very well in draft. It appears that 5-1 and 6-0 are the records, because not only is it incredibly hard to get your CC record any better than X2, but also, even if you are in that position where you have a really good CC run, if you get your losses early and they're in draft, it seems to indicate that you're probably going to end up being, that 8th, 9th, 10th spot where you might have to get lucky. So draft continuing to show that even with the 15th round being CC, draft still seems to be the most important thing at the Pro Tour by far. And it's not really close. If you look at this data, at least that's what it seems like to me, is that those draft rounds and having a good draft is the most important thing, because CC is a lot more controllable, typically lower variance, and it's hard to get that like 8-1, 9-0 CC is really tricky. And even our players who did still ended up doing very well in draft. So, yeah.
Yeah. Also, we pointed this out when we were discussing earlier that nobody lost to Florian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, we have our stats as well for what people lost to in Swiss. Of our top 8 players, all of the losses were 6 Enigmas, 3 Prisms, 2 Auroras, and then one of our players lost to each Slippy, Zen, and Vincent. So interesting that we see the 3 biggest decks, Enigma, Aurora, and Prism, being the only heroes that manage to beat 2 of our top 8 players or more. Enigma being the big one, right? Where it looks like we also have 1.75 Enigmas per player, same as our amount of Auroras. And that seemed to be where most of our top 8 losses came from, were from Enigma.
So I just want to highlight, I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like these top 3 decks that the top 8 lost to, Enigma, Prism, Aurora, I feel like those are like the 3 highest variance decks in the format now.
Well, they're also just the 3 decks.
At least in terms of like spiking wins.
Yeah, I mean, they're also just the decks that did the best, right?
I would say Prism and Enigma are more spiking wins, less so Aurora.
Aurora really does not feel like a high variance hero when you play it, but the other 2, I think, for sure do.
I meant more in terms of like taking agency away from your opponent. Like when those 2 decks do the thing, you just kind of lose now.
I think Aurora, when you have Flicker Wisp, does that. I think with other than Flicker Wisp, I don't think that's true.
I don't even think that's necessarily true with Flicker Wisp. Like Flicker Wisp, you do the combo, you do have like a 26 to 28 damage big turn, but it's not like the opponent just loses the game immediately if they don't have a hand.
I think a lot of the time.
Oh, I'm trying to say if when Aurora draws like 4.5 value per card, you just lose. Like when they draw that sequence.
I think that like gameplay wise just feels very different than Enigma Prism.
Because normally,
it may lead to
what
the
that
same
is,
outcome.
yeah. With Aurora, normally what that is like I'm gonna put a bunch of like CLVs and burn ups because those are like how you actually go up, like more than 4, and those cards are.
Well, I just put out the 0 for 5.
At least in theory to interact, or at least it's possible to interact with those. Sometimes you can't, right? When you just draw like Arc Lightning, E Strike, go again, finisher, whatever.
Fair. I do. I want to circle back to the draft stuff. So, essentially, you have to X1 or 6-0 draft to top.
Yeah.
But that's been the case forever. Essentially, this is almost how it breaks down for draft at every major. Do you think that's good? Do you think that's how it should be?
It really, it does not feel good.
It definitely makes it weird how they assign the LL points when the actual key factors draft. Like, why does the Pro Tour has like the highest weighting of LL points as opposed to any other event? But like, it's not necessarily that hero that's giving them the. I mean, they obviously have to win the final match on that hero, right? But what's really propelling them to success is the draft.
I don't know. I would kind of argue against that. I think like winning a top 8 of that caliber, even though it's like a 3-round armoring, I think that's enough to justify the points for me.
I mean, day 2 of the Pro Tour is some of the hardest CC, right? Like you look at none of our players 4-0 CC on day 2. Right?
I mean, so 58 players went into day 2 CC with 3 losses or less, and only 2 of them went 4-0. That's how hard the last 4 CC matches are.
Yeah. It's really hard to win 4 games in a row in CC where everyone's decks are good when there's nobody left that's because the thing is like you don't.
These are all the players who have been getting lucky as well.
Yeah,
so like. Yeah. So there's like 2 things converging when you get into those last 4 rounds. It's like these are the players who are really prepared and they're like playing well. They have good decks. They have good matchups. Like they've done all of the prep needed, and they're good. Most of them, but they're also the people who have been getting the most lucky the entire tournament because it takes luck to get to that spot as well. So now you're converging those people on those 2 different.
That's like not how statistics work though. With the luck,
that's 100% how the
like if you get lucky day 1, you're not like more likely to get lucky day 2. Just ask Charles.
Like, for sure.
Like Charles.
No, again, I'm talking about the last 4 rounds of CC.
Yeah.
So these are the people who went through.
Doesn't make you more likely to get lucky in CC. Like what? Come on.
These are the people who have been more lucky the whole tournament.
Sure, they might
that is the only stat that I said.
Mental because they're lucky, but like it doesn't matter, right? Like being lucky going into the last 4 rounds isn't like an actual thing that makes those rounds harder, right? Like if anything, that makes it easier because those are the players who have been getting lucky and maybe are worse. Like I don't know. I just don't think that matters. But it is the players who are there, right? Like. Regardless of how they got there, there's basically going to be no like Armory Andes left on CC day 2 of Pro Tour. Like there's the skill level at that level is quite high compared to basically any other level of competition, right?
I think it's a little format dependent. I think this format allows for more like variance based entry.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean we see that in the top 8, right? Where maybe some mistakes are made, but it's allowed to be made up for with a draft format that maybe lets you exercise your skill less.
Well, I meant the CC format too. I think it's like
Yep. I
one
think
of the higher variance ones we had.
I think it's interesting. I think it is high variance, but it also feels really high skill. At
Okay.
least is how
Oh,
I.
yeah, I
One
think
sec.
it's just the
Go ahead.
Here's some empirical high variance. Look at how many heroes have the phantasm mechanic. That is just like the
Mhm.
most high variance thing
I
that
agree with
exists in FAB.
Yeah.
And that's just like the one of the core tenets of what makes all the
Mhm.
illusionists and top strong, right?
Yeah.
Everyone just like abusing these super above rate cards that are super in your favor when they resolve and very bad when they don't.
No, I agree. I do think this is one of the highest variance formats we've had in a while. So I do
it's
think
also just the age of the format. Like
Yeah.
everything's so solved that
Mhm.
these like edges you can get in other formats just don't exist because
it
like
feels
there was no secret deck that anyone brought, right? That like broke the format. It was just classic
Yeah.
Enigma that people have been playing for a year now that won, right?
I think the thing is that like most of the games are you can get to 100% where it's harder to in other formats maybe get to like 100%. But it does feel like it doesn't matter as much because, like you said, everyone's decks are playable, right? At the start of the format, you have a lot more like my deck is just better than yours, or I just prepared better. But at the end of the format, even if you're still flexing some of those like I know what I'm doing better than you in this matchup things, you're not going to get any. Your decks doesn't work, right? My deck is just fundamentally better than yours. You don't really have access to that in the same capacity.
I do think that's why we saw like specialists, I think, do pretty well this event. Just because like it's so variance based that like when you do have your like good variance, you have to take advantage of it and like
Mhm.
not make misplays or matchup mistakes that cost you games. So I think that makes sense to me. I don't know if you guys observed the same, but it felt like specialists did pretty well.
I also think that normally when the top of the meta converges, the like other aspects of the meta that are like targeting things do better. Like Vincent, for example, if you look at the top 3 decks being Prism, Enigma, Zen, or Aurora, excuse me, like Vincent is the kind of deck where in a wider meta she might struggle a lot more. But if you're just taking Vincent because you have a very converged top of the meta where like clearly there are 2 best decks, and then maybe if you expect Prism to do well or whatever it is, then you can target those higher decks, and those specialists on those decks that are positioned well end up doing better. Like you look at like Uzuri as an
Okay.
example.
Well, I think one like key difference between Vincent versus the top decks, because Vincent also obviously has variance, but like a really good Vincent hand that's gonna like push through a blocking Enigma, or just like what you think of as like a super strong Vincent hand is typically like a 4 to 7 card combination because they may have some cards in their banish zone.
Yeah.
Whereas like Aurora is just like Arc Lightning Flicker
Mhm.
or like just resolving a CLV.
Yeah.
Right? Prism is like I hit with a Herald of Protection or an Erudition. Enigma's like, okay, I did my hat, played Mirror Guy into CNC.
Mhm.
It's just like so much simpler to execute in terms of the number of like combo piece type cards required. I think that's like why these decks do better over the long term is just like they have high variance plays that are positive for them that are just much easier to at least get to the doorstep of executing. It's not like a super specific setup.
Yeah.
So that's why Vincent's bad. TLDR.
Got
No
it.
other reason.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to look at this. If you were to go to another pro tour, you could kind of judge where you're at and what you need to do in order to top. If you like went 5-0 in the Swiss portion, like on J1, then you can go X2 in draft. If you and like still have a good chance at topping. But if you did not go 5-0, then you have to go X1 or better
Yeah.
in draft.
And
then like you have to be able to have a spot where you go into the last 4 rounds essentially able to give up 1 loss, because winning 4 games against that caliber of player in that very condensed meta is going to be incredibly difficult. And so like you can kind of judge your chances while you're going through the tournament, whether this is helpful or not. It's probably not helpful in the day of, but it is an interesting thought that you can kind of map out on your likelihood of topping.
We also see that like day 2 CC is like even though it's like very hard to do well, that's like one of the. I mean, obviously we know it's super important, but you look, all of our top 8 players were X1 or undefeated in draft, and then they all went. Literally, all of them went 3-1 in CC on day, or except for Andrew Cook went 2-2, right? But our other 7 players went 3-1 on CC in day 2. So there is interesting kind of metagaming to be looked at there, where maybe taking a deck that's good into the wider field but doesn't convert as well at the very top of the meta is maybe looking even worse and worse, because you might just think you have to kind of maybe get lucky to get to day 2 anyway. So you need to make sure that once you get there, you have the ability to maximize it.
Yep, I would agree. I do think it's interesting. We did have a player get a bye.
Yep.
Leo got a bye in round 1. He was supposed to play against Jamie Faulkner, who never showed up.
Yeah, it was probably a bye anyway, right?
Just
Yeah.
just a
Yo,
funny
what's up with that,
stat.
by the way? Why do they do a player meeting and then there's still people with buys? Like, what is the point of a player meeting?
They just did the player meeting wrong. Is the only thing I could think of.
Yeah,
I think it's because of the new gem software.
Yeah, the gem changes in both CC and draft seem to cause many an issue for this event. Although, to be fair, I will say all of the issues seemed like they were fixed or learned from, at least. Like it was a bunch of this is a problem. The judges come together and they figure out some solution that is pretty reasonable. So,
but surely the solution is not to give people buys at a pro tour in round 1.
Yeah, agree.
There's a lot of fun business like that.
If there was one person who got a buy, then we can understand that. Yeah. But there were handfuls of people who got buys.
Yes, there were 2 buys.
That is
some of our
top performing. That is that should never happen at a pro tour level. So hopefully it never happens again.
Yeah, I think there's one other top 8 stat we got to talk about.
Yeah, what's that?
Pablo Pintor, I believe, has top 3 pro tours now. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And he won 2.
Yeah, that is correct.
That's just so unbelievably unreasonable. No.
Yeah,
with how few we've had.
It is. Yeah, he is very good, and he got good variance.
If you look at Pablo Pintor's runs, 6 pro tours, 3 top 8s.
Yeah.
2 top 16 or 32s, and those were with Riptide and Reinar. The man is a menace. Come on, Get out of here. Yes, good variance and all that. Yes, he had good matchups for this event, and maybe got lucky in some important spots on stream. But holy shit, this guy is crazy. That's
actually unreal.
My favorite part about watching him is he's just the most composed.
Mm-hmm.
Literally not a hair on his head moves when he has the most oppressive situation in front of him. He just is so chill.
Yeah.
And then he pops off when he wins, obviously. But during the game, he's the most chill guy. It's
he's one of the few pros I haven't played against yet. I really want to.
What's up?
He's one of the few pros I haven't played against yet in tournament.
Yeah, I haven't
played. I only played him once, but it was a Starbow mirror, so I won. But he played.
I look forward to trying to play him because I want to see if I can banter and get him off his game a little bit.
I think he's good friends with Bino, so surely he's.
Oh, he
can.
I believe that he can be chatterboxed.
Okay. Good.
He likes to talk.
That'll be my strat.
Yeah.
Anyway, I felt the need to shout that out because that's just.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to talk about it, right? I mean, he's
so ridiculous.
It's actually insane, right? I mean, also just shout out to everybody else real quick. Who top 8 this event. We had some American and Canadian players that got some good breakthroughs.
Dude, even shout out to the people who made day 2. Mm-hmm. We couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's hard these days to go 5-3. That extra round's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
Game hard.
Mm-hmm.
No. I would I hope to never experience another weekend like that.
Dude, when you guys watch the stream back,
another weekend like this, I might quit. What was that? No.
When you guys watch the stream back and they show the end of day 1 slide for the team check-in.
Oh no!
No! I don't want to see it.
It's so every single person made day 2, and then we have 3 people in day 2.
Charles.
It's Charles went 8-0, and then it's me and Julie.
Well, that's not the problem. The problem is it writes in all caps "drop" next to everyone who did not day 2.
Drop.
Yeah. Raj has his profile picture now. It's just 1-4.
We'll get him next time.
Of course, they introduced this on the one event that we actually do poorly.
They're not going to follow us again.
This is the first time we've ever not had because we normally we have 50% day 2 at least.
Yeah, we've very consistent
it's
there.
for day 2 is normally way higher than that. We usually have 50%
that's our
cash rate.
Yeah,
50%
Yeah, our cash rate is
like
50%.
the average, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's including like
So-
callings and stuff. So I think for PT day 2s it ends up being like
It's probably around 50.
40%. I think is what it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, 3
not the,
out of the 13 of us
5%
that
we
were
put
there
up.
or whatever is pretty crazy.
Cool. Okay. Anything else on the top 8, the stats, Pro Tour in general before we get to podcast questions?
Yeah, I just want to add to my intro story 40 minutes ago. I forgot to say that like when I sat down to play my first round, I just felt like the biggest imposter in the world playing illusionist when like Zen is legal. I think like 50% of my opponents just assumed I was playing Zen and asked me if I was playing Zen before I showed them my hero.
Same.
Yep. I had 4 people day 0, like Thursday, that asked me the same question of how does Dan feel when he found out that Zen wasn't gonna LL, and I was sitting there.
Dude, I was
happy to just
chilling
be
in
like,
Scotland. Like I didn't.
he doesn't
was not
care.
even.
He doesn't
Yeah, I was like
matter.
petting a Highland cow. Like I don't care about Zen, man.
Yeah. Almost everyone assumed I was playing Zen as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, after a couple of rounds of day 1, I was like, maybe I should have been playing Zen.
Same.
After the way it was like, I got cursed because I decided not to play Zen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You could have been the one Ripple away in.
I could have been the one with Ripple away in my Zen deck for some reason.
You could have been the guy that forgot to ripple away.
Okay. Next, we're going to go to some podcast questions. Podcast questions are brought to you by our sponsor, Gilded Raven Games. Gilded Raven Games is a local store in New Jersey who also has an online presence and ships, and most of their single pricing is much lower than a TCG player. The link will be in the description below, but I will say this, next week we should have some pretty cool stuff to announce with that partnership. Cool. Let me get into these questions. First one from Sergio asks, is it Jarl time?
Yes, it is.
Just for the people at home who aren't sure why this is being asked, Enigma is going to essentially rotate out, and Zen is going to rotate out probably next weekend, like this weekend.
Nearly 100%.
Nearly 100% that's going to happen. And then Aurora is expected to rotate out by the end of the whole season.
Especially because Enigma and Zen are gone. She needs like 20% of the ProQuest wins or something ridiculous that's just, she'll get.
Yeah. So people are now looking to see what could possibly be the next decks that rise up. That Enigma and Zen are going to be gone, and then Aurora eventually will be gone pretty soon. And so Jarl, I have had a lot of people say it's probably their time.
Yeah, that hero is very powerful. Frostbites are really strong. We're getting a new set soon, in August. I guess that's a little bit of ways away, but yeah, I mean, Guardian in general gets better, and I think Jarl was the Guardian that was the best. Stalagmite's crazy. Some of his cards are ridiculous. Oakenhold's really strong.
It's perfect right on time. We're getting the 6 for 10 that he can't be prevented right as the illusionist rotates out.
Yeah, of course.
OSS always coming through.
Perfect. Agreed. Kasuma asks, is it Victor time? And the answer to that question is no, it's never Victor.
So I think Victor is in this interesting spot where I actually think that he could be reasonable, but I think you just have to build completely differently than how people build it right now. Like, I think Victor's role as the Guardian is basically to be the high variance deck that preys on clashing, because it's previously when Victor was good during heavy hitters, for example, he was basically good because Guardian was reasonable-ish, and Victor was the Guardian that did the best numbers. But Jarl is probably just better at doing the blank Guardian stuff, and Valda will probably better at doing the hit you really hard, be aggressive Guardian. But Victor can be the, I'm going to play 6 Clash of Vigors and 3 Test of Strength and 3 Trounce, and I'm going to play Clash of Might and Sledge and Goldmane Estate, and I'm just going to outvalue you by clashing a million times. And I actually think that strategy is kind of interesting to look at, especially when you don't have to worry about Enigma as this it doesn't matter because I'm trying to get value on defense and Enigma's just going to play Ward and I'm just going to lose probably.
Yeah, I think if you build your Victor deck with infinite Clash of Mites, that was something that people had messed around with.
I think it's good.
it's like effectively you're converting your cards to 4 value, but in a way that you're buffing up on hits, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
And
I think it's really good.
and you also just have like some really crazy value plays within you, right? Test of Strength and Trounce are obviously super strong. Golden Sun's super strong. Goldman Estate is super strong. I think Victor's problem is just that he's not better at the other Guardians at doing a game where you don't clash, and you have to be willing to clash, I think, a lot to get value out of him. But that being said, I do think that if you are able to win clashes into aggro decks, and maybe the slower decks are looking like piratey decks or whatever it is, if you can win clashes, I do think Victor does have a place in the meta.
But he does have to be afraid of new.
Yeah, new also still being in the format is rough because you just
And Jarl doesn't need to be as afraid of new.
Jarl does not care about new as much. Yeah. Killing Hat versus giving them 30 blues to play is like very different.
He Who Smites asks, do you feel happy with your deck choice? Did the metagame break down as you predicted? I'll let Lucas go first since he played a different deck than the three of us.
Since he played the wrong deck. Anyway.
You said I played the wrong deck?
Yeah, look at the results,
man. Like,
not
close.
Okay. So
we're 2 for 2.
Okay, we wanted to talk about results. So Charles and I both went 8-1 on our Aurora deck because we actually made day 2 and got to play 9 rounds of CC.
They didn't ask about people; they just asked about deck.
Our Aurora deck was sweet. I think it was pretty good. The team players that played it did pretty well. We just killed everyone. I think our Aurora deck was not only is Aurora, I think, the best deck comfortably, but I also think that our list and sideboard plans were, as they normally are within the Runaways, pretty great. I think that the deck was unfavored into a couple of niche things that even then it's fine. And I felt like we had a pretty big advantage into the Aurora Mirror. I played 3 Aurora Mirrors. I won all of them. I think one of my opponents played pretty well, and I think they all played fine, but I think one of them had a good setup and, did the right stuff, but it kind of just felt like people at the event were worse playing and preparing for it. Like I felt like our equipment was better than other people's, and our game plans were better. Like the PCG players in top 8 couldn't even side out Lightning Valley into Enigma. Like their deck couldn't do it, which is crazy because I think that's just fundamentally something you have to do. But yeah, I thought our deck was great. CC was not the problem for the Runaways players who played Aurora. So
yeah, I will. I'll give a pretty candid response for I think our deck. We were playing the Refractor switch list. I think numbers wise, stat wise, the deck was a very good choice. Obviously, Enigma won both events. I think it gave points where I wanted points in certain matchups like Zen and Aurora. However, we were trying to play essentially a stable deck, a deck that does consistent value turn by turn, into a format where it's pretty high variance, and the decks that were going to be there doing well can have really, really high highs. And we basically stripped all the high highs out of the deck, stripped the low lows out of the deck, and tried to converge it and then win within that frame. I think that ultimately was probably the wrong choice for this event, due to the fact that when anything outside of the normal rate happened to us when we were playing Refractor, there's basically no comeback mechanic that could possibly happen. Essentially, they draw a press when you Phantasmaclasm them. There's no way to win that game. They ripple away you when you play it. There's almost no way to win the game when you've been walking it down.
I was with you for the first couple minutes you were talking, but
yeah, I don't know that I agree.
That's fine. I'm still right. So it doesn't.
No.
It matters where it happens in the game. If you're up by 10 health and they break your your Phantasmaclasm, you just lose another 6 points off of their next swing. This is a very big deal. When you're trying to close out the game, the way you close out the game is by them no longer being able to hold big hands.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with our deck versus theirs? Everybody plays 3 Phantasmaclasm. That's a weird example. Our deck is really the exact same deck as the other people's deck. We just have a different weapon. That's only good when you get to keep a bigger board.
We're walking down health.
No, I think
and not having giant spike turns.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
The difference is that instead of playing Mirror Guy, all of your spectral manifestations are better, right? It's like you have more consistent good value plays than you have high highs, which I do think is a meaningful thing into this meta where you want to have the ability to high roll. But feel like the whole like they pressed your Phantasmaclasm, and instead of them doing a 2-card 7 on offense, they did a 2-card 9 on defense. Like whatever. Like it's really like yes, in some spots in the game it's a big deal. I agree, but
yeah, like almost all of them, because you're walking down health together. Like
Yeah.
you're not banking any advantage over your rounds other than some portion of your health. So like you'll get like a 10-point lead or a 5-point or a 7-point lead. You'll get the turn where you're like, I'm going to strip 2 to 3 cards out of your hand, and then you'll never be able to hold that many cards ever again. And if they break that cycle, then that's how you lose.
well, how would that
The
be
look on
different?
your face, Lucas, is just like
How would that
ridiculous
be
that you don't
different if it
understand
was
this.
Cosmo?
How is it different? Is because when you're playing Cosmo, you have massive turns that you can set up that do like 20 points of damage. You have
Sure,
big
sure.
turns that you can actually create, which create advantage on the board or across the whole game that allow you to push those into wins.
Okay.
So even if bad things happen later,
Sure.
you've created such an advantage throughout the game that it's fine. We don't create that kind of advantage with Refractor. You're creating like an 8-point advantage or a 5-point
Mhm.
advantage over a bunch of turns. So when something big or bad really happens, you don't have the space to really make up for that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, we don't have like 1-turn wins. We have like 2-turn wins.
Yeah.
And our high roll is just like drawing 3D reacts. It's like what we're hoping for.
To be fair,
issue
But I
3D
don't know. I
reacts.
still think
I
that
think
that's
part
like
of
such a
that
high
is
roll.
because the deck.
Oh, it is. Yeah, no, our deck absolutely has
Yeah,
high
there's
rolls.
one
We just
turn.
don't have like shorten the
You put-
game.
You put the
rolls.
8-power guy. You have the tunic coming up. You set a D-react. You use your shoes. You block the whole turn. You set another D-react and force them to do it again, and you swing for 8.
Yeah.
It's like that's the nuts.
Yeah,
And then you
I
no
think
block because they're at like
Yeah,
2
my-
and you go E-strike.
my
go
confusion
again,
was when you
trade.
said that you couldn't come back, because it's like actually like you absolutely can come back. It's
Dude,
just
it's like the best comeback deck ever. You just
Yeah.
like you can block hat in your whole hand and then swing for 6 off tunic.
Yeah.
That's like insane comeback.
yeah, it's like actually I think the best deck at coming back, because you're allowed to use all your cards on defense on a lot of the turns and still get value, which is like the best thing that you can do when you're coming back. Like the decks that suck at coming back are the decks that have to keep 5 cards to come back.
Well, there's some
deck
cases
doesn't
where
really
our deck
function
absolutely
that
does
way.
not come back though. Like
You get comboed for 30 health.
Well,
on,
but
like,
you're
turn
the
3.
actual only
Like,
deck. Like
you're not
one of the
coming
only
back.
decks that can win, because you still have the illusionist thing where like you can just keep a board around even if it's just only 8 if your opponent keeps taking 8. Now
Yeah, if
people
you
are
get
also
combo for 30 and playing Cosmo, it's even worse for you probably.
To be fair, I think there is some truth that since the Refractor Enigma deck is like fundamentally like really bad on the like true damage axis, like on the attack block, it's kind of bad because you can't come back if your opponent just like draws cards that block, right? Like if you're up, you go down 20 health, it's math wise, I think it's fine for the Refractor Enigma deck to come back, because if your opponent keeps like taking damage and playing a full hand into you and you block all your cards and then do more damage, it's good. But people can just like block out against you and
Well,
wait for a hand that actually kills you. But people are bad at it,
yeah,
so they don't do that.
that's exactly what happens a lot of the times. If you go down like 20 health, it's going to take you're maxed out at like 8 damage per round.
Yeah.
So what happens is they have an infinite amount of rounds still to find the hand that breaks your shit and pushes
Yeah.
more damage.
Let's see.
And that's
this
the
is where
issue.
you're missing the key ingredient.
People are so bad.
No, yes, you evaluate your opponent before the match.
Yeah.
And you determine, are they the kind of person who'd be like, I think I'm just going to block infinite because I have this health lead. Find, like Lucas said, find the hand that kills you and then play that hand. Or are they the kind of person who's like, oh no, this is Enigma. I can never block a card the whole game. I have to just keep attacking.
Yeah.
And then that's when you put the Refractor on the table.
I do
No,
think
no, it
I do think part of it is like, I think what you're saying is not wrong. I just think in practice it's like it feels like fundamental flaws with the Refractor deck, where like the deck is not very good because of these things. Like it's always had these problems, and that's why it's never done well. It's just that you get points into people who don't know what they're doing, and then maybe it evens out. But
I don't know. I don't
No,
buy that.
you-
A lot of decks just can't block in this format. So
yeah, but
Yeah,
like
really have
you
that
get
option.
value when the game lives within the expected value. That's when it's good. It's when it goes outside of that you lose everything that you're trying to get, because you can't go outside of that. You're constrained within one lane that you play in. The other thing that's like really important to take into account is that several of the Auroras I played against were full comboing into Enigma, which is really unusual to run like gold helmet and the chess piece and just try to like, and our version is really bad into that. With Refractor, because they can just basically wait indefinitely. We don't have like you can't play that into normal Enigma because they just like weakest link you one time and then you just lose the game because you have no armor.
I think that was just unlucky for you, Cody.
I played that
I played
several
against
times.
6 and not a single one had any combo piece.
Yeah, no, I got 30 comboed twice from full setup because they had full setup. Like I'm just like, okay, can't win these. So
Okay, so what was the summary? Where did we?
the summary is I wouldn't
I
play
would-
the deck again because it's too.
Okay.
It
So
doesn't
your
I
match
would
summary
play
is
it
for
again.
how the format works.
I
I
would
think it was
play
the
it
right
again.
deck for me to play.
Yeah, I would run it back for sure.
Yep.
The only change I would make is I would get greedier in my blues. Like I would just say whatever. If I pair in a new, I'll just try to win before they have enough space to play all my banish. But that's really it.
I would not play it again because I don't think it lines up well with how the people who are winning in the format are winning, and that's my issue. It's high variance, so whoever, if they're getting really high variance and we can't beat someone who gets high variance, like we can't also get high variance with them, then it feels like you're probably playing the wrong deck. Fundamentally,
I don't know. I think we still have that though. Like,
Yeah, I
just
think,
play the
I think that
Cosmo
would
then,
be
right?
true if you guys were playing like Hatchet Dory. But like I think Enigma does have the ability to come back and beat some high variance hands.
yeah, like refractor
with-
is such a big deal for some of the matchups, even like outside of Aurora. Like maybe against Aurora, sure, we could have played Cosmo.
Regardless, I think we've probably exhausted this question a little bit, but
I mean, I think
important
it's good
question.
to send other ones, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Assassin.
Wardo, I was strictly only talking about Aurora for that issue. But Wardo77 asks, is it new time again? I'm like, of course.
yeah,
It's
probably.
ProQuest season.
Yeah.
I'm playing new.
Yeah, seems good.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm playing. Both of my decks are LLing this week. How did this possibly happen?
Because
Well,
you
no.
play the best dice.
Your real deck is just coming out this week, right?
Kano?
Max.
No, Max.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
So I
Is it
spent the
Max?
plane ride. Some of my plane ride theory crafting Max. There's no shot I'm playing Max. There's no shot I'm putting hyperdrivers in my deck. And if I'm not doing that, then these new cards do nothing. So
Whoa, hold on, but it's okay because you can discard them with your chest.
yeah, I'm not putting hyperdrivers in my deck.
Interesting.
There's still like no fix for the fatigue issue.
I'll figure something out.
No, there's nothing that's worth it. Like once you start going through it, it's
You
like
just
yeah,
make
you could do Bank Breaker for a couple turns.
I think
And
the
then go
answer
to
is
Mech
you
to
just put
close, but-
Nitro Mechanoid. I think you just construct Nitro Mechanoid in the fatigue deck. No,
then
I'm
what?
serious. I think you just play a boost deck. Like you have all the equipments right there. You're playing a deck that naturally plays a bunch of hyperdrivers. I just think you play like boost aggro deck, and then when people try to fatigue you, you just hop in the suit.
And then they still fatigue you
And
because
then
you can
what?
only swing one time per game.
Well, you have like after that you just have Hanabi
They like
Blaster.
super fatigue
You
you
just
after
have
that.
Hanabi Blaster every turn of the game. Like,
Yeah, like if you just treat you can just treat the suit as like it's overpower, right? So like
yeah, it's
some
Hanabi
damage
Blaster.
relief.
It's just Hanabi
Yeah.
Blaster that blocks every turn.
That's one more damage too, right? 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you guys gonna play Max?
I might try and play it. Yeah. I
Wish you
think
luck.
the new stuff is
Yeah,
interesting
good
enough
luck
to
with
look
that.
at for sure.
Yeah,
I did look at it.
I hate
And now I'm done
boosting,
looking at
so
it.
Yeah,
I don't want to have
I'm
to
sad
boost
about it.
decks again.
Boosting set, I agree. But I think to be fair though, I think Max is the deck that actually has the most like reasons to boost because you now have Fast and Furious, you have synergies when you boost hyperdrivers, and you also have like Crankshaft and Big Bertha. So it is, I think, interesting that like we probably do actually finally have a deck where like a reasonable amount of your boost cards are actually good when you boost them.
Hmm. And then the best part is you get to play another Fable, and you pitch Master Cog, and it's like you just get a free card.
These things just don't
That's
all fit in
super
a
fun.
deck is the issue.
It fits in their deck because they've never played the hero.
Yeah, like
No, I don't even think it's good. I was just complaining about Fables more.
I'm pretty sure I'm a Prism player now though. I want to play the Pokemon deck.
Prism Sweet.
Perfect. Sam asks, what's your favorite thing that you did well in London? Harry Potter tour.
Oh,
for
Harry
sure.
Potter thing for sure.
Probably the Liverpool game.
Play Flesh and Blood.
Out.
Arms person asks, vibe check Volda. I have zero interest.
Dude, I don't even know what Valda does.
I think that hero's really gonna be.
If he like draws your opponent's cards or something.
Everybody's hating on Valda, but I think she's probably gonna be pretty reasonable actually. I think her hero
When did she
ability
come
is
out?
Mastery
When is she
Pack
legal?
Guardian, I think, right? Well, she won't be real until Mastery Pack Guardian.
Isn't she acquirable this weekend?
I think so, but like before the Mastery Pack comes out, there's like no point.
But she's legal this weekend?
I'm not sure.
It doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
But I think she's.
I just
I
want to know
won't-
when I should read her text box.
My opponent can register Valda, and whether she's legal or not, I will not call a judge because it doesn't matter.
Accurate. Paxi asks, do you guys gotta read this first.
It's English, bro. I believe in you.
Yeah, this one's fine. I actually think.
Okay, FAB related. Has Enigma been the best deck in the format the whole time post book bans?
No.
Dude, what was so difficult about asking if we got jerk chicken?
I just
It
don't,
wasn't asking about you jerking your chicken. It was just
I
about
don't
food, man.
understand what the reference of the question is. So it's just like
He's
They're
just
saying they found a
asking-
good chicken
just asked
spot.
if we went
I
He was
to
wanted
a
to
asking
know
if we went to
anyone
some
else did.
place. The answer is that I don't think any of us went to that place.
No, I did not
No.
discover it.
We went to the
I was
most
not.
boring
I
restaurants.
was also not aware of it. So
Yeah, Enigma has not been the best deck since the book bannings. No,
Yeah, definitely not.
it was not the best deck at Worlds. Zen and Dio were the best decks at Worlds. Viscerai was also probably one. Those three, I think, were the best decks at Worlds. For this event, I don't even think Enigma was the best deck. I still think Aurora was the best deck. Like,
Oh, I think it was by far the best deck.
I honestly think
Currently.
that even the people in top 8 playing Aurora were playing it badly with bad lists. I think I watched some of the top 8 games and was very disappointed that my draft did not go well. So I think Aurora just needed a little bit more time to cook as like the top hero. But
I don't know. She had like a full year to cook.
yeah, I don't think she was the top hero until this format. So whatever. Unlucky.
Kaori asks, James White stated in an interview that the fabled card for High Seas was internally contentious and pushes on some boundaries. Any predictions for what it could be? Like makes a gold or something.
Yeah.
That'd
Yeah,
be
it's going to be something
crazy.
so stupid.
Yeah.
It's going to make a gold on pitch. And it's just like, we literally print full cards that do that and cost your action point, and now you're going to be able to just do it for free.
And I'm sure you'll be able to shuffle and just do it 4 times a turn. 4 times a game. No, it'll be something stupid. It'll be like pitch it. You reveal a top card of your deck. If it's a blue, you make a gold.
Oh, yeah, even more cringe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And it's
sounds
going to be
amazing.
yellow.
Or, it could be even better. It'd be like, if you pitch it, it's like a necro card. If you pitch it, you get to like flip a card in your graveyard over. So you get to like use another one of your
Oh my
allies
God,
again.
Don't even say that.
Because that's just going to be like so stupid.
Yeah, that would be.
You know what
It'll
makes that
probably be
amazing?
some broken thing,
It literally
really
just-
poorly designed.
you just, like,
yeah.
You just like can't even get fatigued now because like you could just every turn pitch in the end of the game and just keep getting your guys back. It's like hard to find all. Or like it just breaks the game fundamentally to where you just can't ever get fatigued.
But I'm sure they wanted to, I don't know, sell product or increase variance or whatever the hell they say it makes Fables good for the game somehow.
You know what they should print on this Fable for this set? They should print an errata for all Fables that says these cards are not legal in Classic Constructed.
That'd be sweet.
That would be great.
Man,
Well,
you guys
they'll-
are such
they'll
Fable
probably
haters.
just make it.
Jeez.
It's probably like no.
Well, it's because like back in the day, it was just like it gains you 1 health, and you're like, oh, that's cute, but it doesn't block.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you just
I'm fine
put
with
it in
this
like every
existing.
deck.
And then it just gets infinitely worse since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks
Tweedle
cool.
asks, what do you guys think about the Lost Treasure and how they're implemented?
It's
Dude, I
cool
want some
for,
treasure.
it's cool for collectors. Next question.
Yeah,
right?
seems cool.
All right, man.
Uh,
Dude,
it
let
might-
people have fun.
I think it's cool. I mean,
Some
it
crazy
might
stuff in there.
EV out the boxes in a really weird way that might get unfortunate, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's enough product. It might also make reprinting the set nearly impossible. So
I think stuff like this is cool too because it's more like incentive for stores to run like case tournament type events where like you can give out product and like people will get like excited about product because
It also gives
something
stores
incredible.
more reason to open product, which, however you feel about that from a player perspective, it is kind of annoying sometimes that stores don't have inventory when sets first release, especially for US Nats. So maybe treasure packs incentivizing stores to actually open product is a good thing for this one.
Oscar asks, any hope for deckless and sideboards from London this week before the first week of ProQuest?
Yes, Runaways will be releasing some deck lists and sideboard guides within the next few days, so keep an eye out for those.
Sweet. Renzo asks, how long will Aurora last? Till the end of ProQuest.
She'll probably
Are you
LL.
sure?
Like, she's
It's
probably
300,
gonna-
right?
It's
It's like 302.
3 weeks, right?
I think this ProQuest is 5 weeks.
Yeah, I think she'll
kinda crazy.
LL at some point throughout ProQuest season. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the numbers look like, but
The only reason she wouldn't is if the removal of Zen and Enigma allow something that really preys on
yeah,
her
if like
to
Jarl is the
become
best
playable.
deck by far this format or whatever random shit
I
happens.
feel like she might enter like the 990 territory, like
It's
these
possible.
other guys.
If she
She
doesn't win any
also-
like the battle hardens or callings or anything, then yeah.
the thing is though, I don't think the meta has enough time to like solidly completely shift, and she's still just the best aggro deck for the next ProQuest season. But yeah, she'll probably LL at some point.
Apriku asks, with Enigma going away, is this going to turn into Aurora versus Florian versus Prism? The meta with the special guest Guardian and Decimator Warriors in the next month and a half.
Florian's not a meta hero. That hero's so bad.
Pretty good at ProQuest level, though.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, that's probably true, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stats really did not put any hope for the population into Florian for this tournament.
Yeah.
But like he was winning the callings and stuff. Like surely he's not bad.
He's winning the calling.
Well, Florian is a good deck at lower levels.
Yeah.
But when you step up to higher levels, Florian gets worse.
Yeah.
Also asks, with the new Illusionist and Runeblade equipment in Gym Pack 3, do you think LSS is pushing Monarch 3 earlier in order to release a new Illusionist?
Dude, please release an Illusionist with no Phantasm and no Spectra.
Yeah.
Or like some reason to like not play those mechanics, make like a new mechanic, and then it would be an amazing, beautiful world.
I think they did. It's called Necromancer.
I think the one interesting thing is that the Viscerai hat is it's not mechanically not unique, but it is pretty unplayable. So I would guess that the new set has some like synergy with it, whether that's like cares about things like equipment with of the Arknight in their name. Like you look at like Grasp of the Arknight would be the other example, where like the new Prism hat is like very clearly a playable card that does a powerful thing, and the Viscerai card is just like shitty hat that's worse than all the other hats. So I would guess that means that there's other support for it, whether that's just in the and you know that probably looks like Monarch 3 would be my guess, but it could also just be they didn't really care and they wanted to have LL Arm Redux and they just wanted to give Viscerai a shitter.
Yeah, who knows? Manavon asks, loves the pod. You guys rock. What are your guys' thoughts on Prism's impressive performance at the Pro Tour?
You play this card, it costs 2. It has a lot of books. If you play this card before turn 4, you win a lot of games.
Yeah, library's broken. I also think Prism is a deck where you have to play right against her, and also you don't have to, but she is one of the heroes that suffers the most from people sideboarding for her and like expecting her to be in the meta. And she's been doing probably worse than she actually is in the last few weeks leading up to the Pro Tour. So people could have been trimming their Prism hate for other sideboard cards for other matchups. And I also think Prism is a hero that is just fundamentally super powerful. And like we've been saying, like you have the ability to just like draw library early or hit your Light of Souls, or your opponent doesn't draw poppers and you just like win the game easy.
It's also a little simpler than that. The Prism players did well in draft.
Yeah.
So they made top 8.
Yep. That's also true.
Like 3 Prism players went like 6-0 or X1. Like that's very good.
Yeah. What was the calling? Wasn't it just like 4 Enigma for Aurora?
Yeah, they're not even close.
Aurora and a Slippy.
And a Slippy, yeah. One slip through. But yeah, there's no Prism. And there was Prisms like in the tournament, just not good enough to do well in that many CC rounds.
Yeah.
That was, that's the big portion is they did well in draft. Roy asks, out of everything revealed so far, which hero in High Seas do you feel has the most potential to be the best deck in the format?
Marlin is my.
Marlin.
Yeah.
Although
it'll even be the best deck if Lucas plays his like stupid ass 4-cost bow and thinks that that's good. It'll still be good because she's just that good.
Yeah, I think Marlin, and then I also think Puffin could be like super super strong. And then Gravy, I think, is probably just resigned to be a good meta call hero, most likely. But I think it's unlikely that he's like super broken being the first Necro, and he's just like good and good into a bunch of different stuff. But he could definitely just be like super strong into a lot of the decks.
Already locked for Nationals on Necro, but it's probably not going to be the best.
Gravy's going to be one of those decks. It's like you look at it on paper, you're like, oh, this deck's the nuts. You draw one test hand, it's 4 allies. Your hand literally does nothing. And you're just like, all right, maybe it's not the wave.
Yeah.
You can't even get rid of them. Just,
you can pitch them to each other to play each other. Like you can play them from hand.
You can shuffle paper around for sure.
Yeah. Big Hungry asks, with the game's new injection of more variance in CC, does the draft portion of large events need to have its impact on your event standings lowered? In this event, it looked like you could only drop 1 game in all of draft rounds due to the amount of games you're expected to drop in CC.
Michael Hamilton actually introduced an interesting concept to me where you could potentially do this. It's just like an idea where you have draft be best of 2, where you have 1 game where you go first and 1 game where you go second, and then you just play 2 games, and they both count towards your ending record. Maybe those games could be like weighted less than other games or something like that. But I think something like that could be interesting. Not necessarily that system or something similar, but some way to try and mitigate variance in draft. Because
so we only draft once?
Yeah, it does really feel like draft is too heavily weighted and too important for how high variance, at least this draft was. I think like Mistveil and Rosetta, and it's looking like maybe High Seas as well, have draft formats and shapes that facilitate lower variance draft formats. But if we keep getting like heavy hitters hunted and then like the normal FAB draft that isn't like Bright Lights, Mistveil, or Rosetta, where it's just 3 heroes, it kind of just feel shit right now for how important and how heavily weighted it is.
It has improved a lot until the set, but it improved a lot over the past 3 sets. I think this set was a step back. I do like the idea that you just get to both go first and second, because that has been a constant problem with draft. That first second is just a massive advantage in limited that becomes a bit harder to overcome.
I don't know if y'all have played Lorcana at all, but that's like the competitive format they use. Is you play 2 games, you get 1 first, 1 second. And I personally hate it in the Lorcana context, but I think in FAB it could be interesting.
Yeah, I think
only for limited. I think it actually makes
in FAB. I think the thing that would make it okay is that like you just have both games count equally. It's just like you don't play like a best of 2. You just play 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's how it is in Lorcana. It's like you get 3 points per win.
Oh, okay, word.
Yeah, you get 3 points per win, but if you 2-0 your opponent, you get bonus points. You get 7 points for the round.
I think that is.
You don't need that in FAB, but it's like a similar idea where it's just a point per win.
Yeah. I think
the one thing that's kind of like different though in FAB is like Lorcana doesn't have a sideboard, whereas like in FAB, like if you were going to do this best of 2 thing, I think you could like reasonably change up some cards based on like how you assess your opponent's deck.
Yeah, which would
be like a totally different mechanic. Not good, bad, but like I think that would really change up the how it goes.
And you could also just introduce deeper cuts.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's obviously a good solution too.
Yeah.
Like they just need to like make it such that the cut makes sense for the amount of people who entered the tournament.
Yeah,
I feel like we just have to pray that the rounds line up for the amount of registrations to the tournament, because like sometimes it's just so cursed.
Cusco asks, with us on the verge of potentially 4 to 6 heroes LLing between now and the end of national season, which heroes do you think are the biggest winners that are on the lower end of the board?
Defensive fatigue decks are the biggest winners, specifically from the Enigma and Zen LL, right? Like that's Guardians, Riptide.
I think the new heroes are the winners.
Warriors,
new heroes,
warriors are unplayable.
Yeah, just any hero that's trying to be somewhat defensive.
I think the defensive ones are fake. I think Marlon's just gonna run them over.
Maybe we haven't got. I mean, we'll see. Because defensive decks actually line up super well into Ranger. Like it's just maybe Marlon will have bigger stuff that's tricky or whatever. But like Redline aggro.
Well, she's presenting as like a Lexi, not an Azalea, right? Like
Well, I think Lexi fundamentally was bad into Fatigue, and then she ended up being good into Fatigue because her cards and kit ended up being pushed enough. But like fundamentally, she was this deck that doesn't have a weapon and whose cards don't attack for very much and doesn't really have evasion like built into her. She just ended up where it ended up being good enough that you could beat Fatigue decks. But also, Fatigue decks at the time were very different than they are now. Like defensive decks have a lot of tools now. They have CYB, they have more D reacts, they have better disruption. Like we haven't seen like defensive decks exist in a while because Mistveil printed Enigma, Mask of Recurring Nightmares, and Cosmic Awakening. So like those decks just don't exist. But with Mistveil rotating out, I think that like typical FAB
is new
deck,
rotating out though?
At some point this
new
year,
will
new
rotate
should rotate
soonish,
out.
and also the other two are gone. So
The meta could change it enough that she doesn't, but she spikes so many events.
yeah,
Like
she's just good.
feels like she should rotate out this year. I did have one other podcast question, but it was given me in person at the actual event. And it says, "Dear Cody, do you remember who gave you this question?" And that was from Adam, my round 2 opponent in the LL. We played a mirror. We were playing the same deck. He was also playing my chain deck. It was probably the most fair RuneGate chain game I've ever played. We both did the same tricks to each other, but I went first, so I think I won. That was it. We both succumbed to each other at the both played the exact same cards. It was pretty funny. Other than that, I think we're out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming up and saying hi to us for London. Noah, I know you wanted to say one thing before we go. What did you want people to do?
Oh yeah, I write super detailed tournament reports. So if you want to read a novel over the weekend of how my 9-5 calling tournament went, feel free to do that. It's in the premium Discord tournament report section. I try to write one for at least one of the tournaments on the weekend that I do okay in, and I find it enjoyable. So maybe you all will too.
Cool. With that, it's bedtime. I'm going to sleep. Bye.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here,
7
but
envelope.
What we could do
in
here is go ahead
darkness.
and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.